Hello everybody, welcome back to Future Fiverr. This is your host Jenny, and this is a channel where I talk about all the crafty things that I do. It's mostly knitting. And today we're going to be doing another knit and chat. I have a couple of minutes, so I thought I would just, yap a little bit with you guys. I feel like I haven't done one of these in a while. I will be knitting on this guy. I am currently working on the second sleeve of the Simply Your Sweater by Sedna Knitting, and so the end is almost near. I just need to finish this sleeve and then I have to do the neck band, and I definitely think I have enough yarn, which is an amazing feeling, not playing yarn chicken. And massive shout out to my boyfriend who suggested that I get an extra skein of yarn when I bought yarn for this project, because originally I was only going to buy 4 skeins, and then he suggested that I buy an extra skein. He was right and I was wrong. This does not happen often, folks, but I will give him credit for this one. Today's knit and chat topic. I feel like maybe it's time that we talk about something a little spicier. It's not that spicy, actually. I thought it would be interesting to kind of have a little discussion about some of the weird things that people have said to me as a knitter. This is 100% based on real events, and if you're one of those people that have said those things to me and you are watching this video, I know you're not watching this video actually, so I'm not going to say anything to them, but I think there's a lot of people that have made videos and short form content around just some weird things that they've heard from other people or strangers as they were knitting in public, or just whatever, you get, as a knitter, you get your usual repertoire of people saying, can you knit that for me? Or can you knit this for, I don't know, my second cousin's grandchild's dog? That kind of stuff. Or like, are you a grandma? I feel like the perception with crafts, especially knitting and crocheting and stuff, has become cool. Like, it's shifted towards coolness in the last couple of years. I feel like we don't get as many comments about like knitting is just for XYZ demographic, or that is like an old person hobby. However, the shift of perception of this craft as a whole does not stop everybody from making kind of out-of-pocket comments. And these are things that I've heard from, I don't know, anywhere ranging from total strangers to like friends and family. So they shall remain anonymous for the most part, but it is based on 100% facts and things that I've heard. So yeah, a little warning about that. But also, before I really get into it, I think my sphere of, whether it be in real life or online, my sphere of crafts and knitting and hobby sharing and that kind of stuff has been generally like really positive. It is kind of it is a weird echo chamber of very positive comments. I rarely hear anything negative about my hobbies. I find that very grateful that for the majority of the people that I surround myself with, whether it be online or in person, they tend to be very supportive of my hobbies. I don't think everybody has that kind of support network. So I think these comments are definitely an anomaly, but I still think they're kind of weird. So let's talk about it. This first one I heard from a complete stranger. So I was sitting in the subway, and I think I was like knitting something small on the subway, and this lady sits next to me. This is not a negative comment. This is a really weird comment. But this lady sits next to me and she goes, "Oh my God, are you knitting that? That's amazing." And it kind of segued into her trying to pawn off her old yarn stash that she had acquired from Paris like 20 years ago. She was like, I have this incredible silk yarn that I bought while I was in Paris many years ago, and I just need somebody to take it. Would you like to buy it from me? We just met. I just met you. I don't want to buy something from you. That was a pleasant yet awkward and weird interaction that I had on the subway. New York City subway, you get a lot of these weird interactions, but I would say that was definitely one of the strangest for me. The other thing that I heard was this is no knock on this person that said this comment to me, because in retrospect, I do wonder if I was kind of rude about this, but we were hanging out and having food at a restaurant. And we were kind of like in that state where we had finished eating and we were just kind of like finishing off our drinks and then like talking and chatting or whatever. And I took out my knitting. I think we understand we're like, as knitters, we carry around our knitting everywhere a little bit, which is, I suppose, in some instances could be kind of obnoxious. But I don't really look at my knitting as I work on simple projects, as you can see. So I was just trying to maintain eye contact with the people that I was talking to, and one of them was like, am I boring you? And I just, in the moment, I was like, oh my god, no, I just have a thing where I have to do something with my hands, and this is better than ripping up little pieces of napkins. This is just better for us and everyone involved. But I did feel kind of bad at the moment, because I was just like, oh man, do they find this, is this rude to like knit at a restaurant? I don't think so though. Like, it's not like the yarn dust or whatever is getting into the food, because everybody already finished eating and we were just sitting there and talking. So I don't think it's rude, but I just thought that was another like encounter where knitting in public has kind of caught me off guard. I think there's also something to be said about that interaction where people have kind of presumed that I was not paying attention just because I was doing something else with my hands. Maybe this is not quite it, but in high school, growing up, I definitely, or just all through school, I definitely had a easier time paying attention when I was like doodling on the paper. And I would be taking notes at the same time, but it's honestly, you've been in classrooms, right? Like, we've all been in classrooms. There is no way as a 14, 13-year-old child I'm going to be paying just my absolute undivided attention to the teacher anyways. If I wasn't doodling, I was daydreaming. So it was just like so much easier for me to divert my attention a little bit by doodling and then paying attention to the teacher. And I've definitely had teachers that were not okay with that. They were like, why are you not paying attention, and just drawing on the paper instead of like listening to what I'm saying. And I'm like, for a lot of people just find it easier to focus if they are doing other things. I think we can't always be paying attention, so anything you can do to kind of remain in the moment as you are kind of, you know, fidgeting or doing something with your hands, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. You know, I think that shouldn't be like actively discouraged. So it was kind of like low-key, it kind of like brought me back to that, I guess, a little bit. So that made me feel a little bit bad about the situation as well. But I can also see from a standpoint of the other person, like maybe you're not used to people who don't give you their undivided attention in like conversations, that it could appear rude, like I'm not paying 100% attention to them. But also, I think we frequently do other things as we're chatting with each other. For example, like before, we were eating and talking to each other. So to say that just because I am doing an extra activity while I'm talking to you doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not paying attention to you. So I think since then, though, I do kind of make sure to ask if they're okay with that, unless they're like my friends' friends, and then they already know like what I'm all about. So, and then also at work, I had a manager who operated kind of similar to me. So he would always have some sort of like fidget toy while we were like talking to each other. And it also helps that we work at a startup. So I think the people there tend to be kind of like a little bit kookier or a little bit more relaxed. Maybe this won't fly in a more corporate setting, but we're not looking at each other face to face most times anyways, because we're on Zoom. So I would knit while in Zoom calls, or I would knit while we were like face to face in a room, and then he would have his own thing that he would be doing and I would have my passive knitting. So I thought that was just like an overall good thing for us to have. It's not like we weren't getting work done. We were, you know, we were talking to each other and discussing things, and we were able to, you know, have that part of our brain like still activated, but we were, you know, just doing something with our hands at the same time. So one could say we're double as productive. It's now maybe starting to get better with certain teachers who are maybe more aware of those things. I was talking to a coworker and he was saying that his daughter crochets at school, and I was like, oh my god, that's so great. And apparently child had asked the teacher, can I crochet while I'm listening to your lecture because it just helps me focus? And the teacher was like, sure. I'm like, wow. So it could have been this easy all along. I guess on one hand, if I had just asked for more accommodation, but also just like if the teachers had been more open to a different style of accepting learning. So I thought that was really nice for them. And I'm like glad to hear that it's changing in certain parts, you know? I know not all teachers intend to be like that, but like some of the teachers I had, I don't know if you guys have also experienced something similar. Like, have people been like kind of offended by you knitting while you're talking to them? I think the general group of like the large group of my friends, they don't really mind. I guess I do wonder now, like, does this make people kind of like feel like I'm not paying attention to them or having conversation with them? I should have asked too before I took it out, but I don't know, curious on your thoughts and if you've had similar encounters. And I guess now these are a little bit more spicy. The first two, they were kind of weird, but it didn't make me feel like super bad or anything. It was just like a happening that I could just brush off, so to say. But these were kind of bad. They kind of stung just a little bit. They kind of got under my skin. So I've heard this for both sewing and knitting actually. I was talking about, I can't remember exactly which thing I made I was talking about or like showing off or whatever. And the comment was like, I think they meant to be worried about me, but they were kind of like, why would you spend all this time making this stuff when you could just buy it? Aren't you spending a lot of time on this and potentially hurting your wrists and your shoulders while you're working on this kind of like hunched over for so many hours? And I thought that was just so weird. Like, it's like I'm talking about the things that I made in a positive light, clearly, because I'm like, oh yeah, I made this stuff, and I'm like showing it off. But then they responded with like, why the heck would you spend all this time making this when you can save yourself the pain, physical pain of not making it? I thought that was just so weird. They were able to somehow make the connection in their head that I did spend a lot of time on this, but I think it was even more hurtful because I made them something before. I've given them something that I've knitted for them, and then they were just kind of like, oh, like, why did you spend all this money, or why did you spend all this time on this instead of buying something when you have something that I gave you that I hand knitted for many hours? Shouldn't that be a indicator of some sort of sentimentality or indicator that I cared about you enough to spend this much time on something that I made for you, rather than, or framing it as worrying about my physical pain? I don't know. It was also so weird because I've never complained about my shoulders hurting, or to them at least, I've never complained about like my wrists. They just thought I would get carpal tunnel from knitting. Which is, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's fair to say that I've never been hurt by knitting physically. Like, I definitely have overextended myself in the past, and it's kind of hurt me in the past. But like, I never told them that. I was never like, oh yeah, like knitting, I love knitting, but it also hurts me. Like, I never said any of that. So I don't know where they got that from. So it just felt like a really weird backhanded way to say, like, why are you spending so much time on this? Like, also related, this I think kind of bothered me the most. I hear this about a lot of dresses that I've made in the past, or like a little bit more like formal wear. This person has kind of like questioned why, kind of in the same vein, they kind of questioned why I spend time and resources making my own clothes, or buying secondhand clothes, or upcycling secondhand clothes instead of just buying something new. And they kind of insinuated that I don't know how to say this without it sounding kind of weird. They were kind of like, don't you have the money to buy the stuff? Or are you just trying to save as much money as you can? So they were basically like, isn't that poor person behavior? Like, I don't know. Why do you think it's so weird to buy secondhand clothes if you're washing them, or if you're upcycling them and making them suit you? Just because it's not like I have a particularly different style from people, but sometimes what you want doesn't even exist. So you just make it yourself, or you find it secondhand. Maybe the thing that you really wanted doesn't exist new right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying like clothes from people, clothes that other people have worn, or recycling yarn or anything like that. But they were basically under this mentality that anything new was better than something that was used, or handmade even, which I thought was so interesting. They made a particular comment about a dress that I sewed to wear to a wedding. They were not at the wedding, but like I had posted a picture of it, and then they were kind of commenting on it like, oh, don't you have money to just buy a dress? Like, why did you make one instead of just buying one? I was like, because I want to? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know. And then that was the same person that has made the poor person behavior comment before. So it was just like connected. It was just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And it's like, I don't even need you to appreciate the craft of me making anything. I don't even need you to go that far. If you have nothing nice to say, like, don't make a comment. They were like, oh, like, I guess this looks nice, but it's like, couldn't you have just bought the same thing? I guess, but why would I when I can make it, and it's a hobby, and it's a craft that I do to learn these skills for when the eventual alien apocalypse comes along. I'm just kidding. But also, there's so many people that don't even know how to do basic mending with clothing, like sewing a button on, or hand sewing a little tear closed, or hemming a pair of pants. You know how much, not even like, this is beyond money, because like if we were talking about it like in the grand scheme of my billable hours being used on hemming a pair of pants that I bought that were too long, like, sure, I could just take it to a tailor and they would do it cheaper and honestly quite possibly better than I could. But that's not the point, is it? That's not the point. Our priorities are different. I like wearing the clothes that I make because I think that's cool, not because the amount of hours I spent like knitting this is cheaper than buying something new off the shelf. No, like, the yarn is definitely more expensive than me just buying a new piece of clothing from, say, H&M. Not even H&M, even if it's like a pretty higher end brand. I think clothing nowadays is, by comparison, significantly cheaper to, I don't know, like before the mass production of clothing. We have way too much clothing. So anything that I can do to kind of slow down my own consumption of newly manufactured clothing, I would say is good. Like, all things considered, knitting is very slow fashion. Like, there's something to be said about the materials that I am consuming, the newly created materials that I'm consuming to create the sweater. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. Like, I could be buying $1,000 hauls from, no, okay, what, maybe not quite $1,000, $100 hauls from Shein every other month, and it would be the same amount of money that I'm spending on yarn, but at a worse impact on the planet. But it's not even about the planet, right? Like, I'm just like getting heated now. It's not about the planet, it's about me. It's about my own preferences. I like wearing something and then getting that little pat on the back high of saying, hey, I made it, even if they don't think it's very cool. Like, I don't care. Like, I just like wearing the things that I make and having that ability to do so and create things that I want to wear when I want to put in the effort. And also, I think it's a good way, especially with sewing, to use up and recycle a lot of things that I have at home. Like, I frequently turn my bed sheets that have holes in them because my cat likes to scratch up my bed and she always tears holes in the fitted sheets. I turn them into pillowcases, or I turn them into cushion covers, or I turn them into button downs or a skirt. I don't know, like, just the possibility of that creativity, I think, is cool. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be about the practicality of it. I just think it's really awkward. I just thought it was really awkward that they were like, yeah, poor people behavior to wear a dress that's handmade to a wedding versus spending, I don't know, however much on a new dress from a online retailer that I wear once. Editing Jenny here. I don't know why this wasn't like the first thing I also talked about while I was sharing this story, but also the fact that this person was so willing to be candidly and casually so classist always never fails to amaze me. To just be so confidently putting yourself out there as attributing greater value to wealth above other features. I don't know, questionable. Each to their own. Those are some of the weird interactions that I've had with people around my crafts and hobbies. Once again, like, I still do get the knitter repertoire of, can you knit this for me? I've had somebody send me a picture of a sweater they saw on a shopping site and they were like, can you knit this for me as a gift? And I was like, no, dude, like, even the raw material also, it was brioche. I was like, bitch, like, I could net, like, I don't even knit myself brioche. Like, I gotta love you. I gotta love you. I don't love you like I love myself, and I still wouldn't do it, you know? So I thought that was kind of funny, but like, just things like that. Or I've also had a lot of people ask me if I sell what I make, and I'm like, no, I don't. Like, think about the material costs and then the labor costs, and it would never work out. And I've also had a couple people Instagram DM me and ask how they can buy like something that I posted about, but I think they're bots, so I like to pretend they're not real people. So it's just like interesting and just small like little things in there. But overall, my sphere of people that consume my, or are exposed to my hobbies and my crafts, they are very positive. You guys have left so many nice comments over the time that I've been on YouTube and on Instagram that I'm just kind of like, maybe YouTube, maybe internet is not a bad place after all. And I do wonder if part of that has to do with the fact that we operate in a circle that like doesn't only care about the final output of the product that we've made, but also the process of it. So even if you don't necessarily appreciate the final product or the aesthetic of a person, you watch it for their journey and their efforts that they put into making certain things. And I think that's great. So you might not be into this aloha green sweater, but maybe you appreciate the fact that I sat and finished one more section repeat of the sleeve. So thanks for hanging out with me and listening to all the weird stories I have from talking to people. Do you have any interesting stories of your own about and comments that people have made about your knitting? Let this be a place where you dish it out, where you air it out in the comments down below, or don't. Yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are. And I will see you guys in the next video. Just kidding, actually, because I forgot that I had made a poll on the Instagram and I forgot to check it. And there were a couple of comments that came in about what I should talk about, so I'm going to do a little Q&A. First question was knitting hot takes. So I didn't do a video about this because I don't really have knitting hot takes, and I think everybody else's hot takes have been hotter takes than mine. But my only hot take is that project bags could be anything that is in a bag form, whether that be a trash bag or a used McDonald's bag. I think project bags are a little overrated. I like the aesthetic of them, but I never use them in like their full capacity. I don't use any of the little compartments inside, so maybe that is a hot take. The second question was, do I enjoy knitting as a relaxing hobby now that I am a professional knitter? I am not a professional knitter. So yes, 100%. I still find it a very relaxing hobby. I am not professional because of my skill level. I am not certified in anything. And I'm certainly not certified to give you any kind of advice. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I just make videos. I just yap on the internet, as you can see me yapping through the camera right now. I do this for fun. So I still think knitting is a great hobby. And I also like have to do this fine balance of like, do I want to shoot a video today as a hobby or do I want to knit for fun? Like every second that I spend editing a video could be spent knitting. So I am like actively taking time away from myself to knit by making videos about knitting. It is a dilemma for sure. The third question was, would I knit anything for my wedding? For my wedding, no. I don't think I want to put that pressure on myself. I thought about sewing my own wedding dress very briefly. And then I thought about like knitting like a lace veil, like one of those like wedding ring veils. And I thought about that very briefly for like 1 millisecond. And I was like, that's crazy. You will drive yourself absolutely insane. So I am not doing that. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that. But I thought about making an outfit for an engagement photo shoot, so I might do that still, but I don't know. And the last question before we close off was Kendrick Lamar versus Drake. And I think my opinion on that is